Hello, dear participants, listeners, and trainee teachers of the Soft Mozart Teachers Free Training course. My name is Larissa Badanina, and I teach electronic musical instruments at the Children's School of Arts in Zelenogradsk, Kaliningrad region. I have also been a certified Soft Mozart teacher since 2019. A new stage in my teaching practice began with reading Helen Heiner's book You Can Be a Musician. It revolutionized my understanding of the possibilities of teaching not only music theory, but also the basic skills of playing a musical instrument. Before reading the book, I was already contemplating my professional inadequacy. My students were consistently struggling with reading music notation. Learning new pieces turned into a tedious process for both them and me, fighting through the complexities of symbols and counting lines on the staff. Instead of engaging in collaborative creativity and enjoying beautiful sounds, I was bogged down in dull, routine tutoring. During lessons, we did what the student was supposed to learn at home, independently. I had to demonstrate, play every measure of the piece, and sing each note and phrase into the child's ear. This is called cramming, not teaching music. Like the method's author, I was concerned about the inadequacy of traditional music notation teaching methods. I was always looking for effective systems to develop music ear and memory for all students, regardless of their innate abilities. And quite by chance, during a conversation in a musical instrument store, I received advice to read the book You Can Be a Musician. Every thought and idea from the book resonated with me, voicing long-standing personal thoughts and searches. The fact that Helen Heiner's method uses a digital instrument, a keyboard synthesizer, which I studied at Herzl State Pedagogical University, seemed not just a happy coincidence, but an immediate call to action. To study and master new knowledge as soon as possible. I completed my training at the International Soft Mozart Academy and began implementing the program at the Children's School of Arts. I also thoroughly studied the new approach at Herzl State Pedagogical University. My graduation thesis at Herzl State Pedagogical University were Helen Heiner's method. It is included in the student curriculum. It was on the topic the use of modern musical educational programs in teaching keyboard synthesizer using the example of Soft Mozart. The Pedagogical Council approved my thesis, and it received the highest grade. I have successfully used the Soft Mozart program in my synthesizer class for 5 years now. I hear only positive feedback about the Soft Mozart program from my students' parents. As a teacher, this innovative method helped me develop new ways and techniques for teaching music, which I use in my lessons. Today, I will discuss the transformation of the staff in the Soft Mozart system. In Gentle Piano, the music text can be presented in 6 types of presentations. Why did Helen Heiner need to transform the staff? To answer this question, we need to take a brief historical excursion. Notes were invented by a monk, Guido of Arezzo, in the 11th century, who taught choir singers. Initially, the notation was simple. Guido's line was monophonic, which did not contradict the nature of human visual perception. Secondly, the notation was visual for the singers, as the arrangement of notes higher or lower fully corresponded to the sensations in the singer's vocal apparatus during singing. Thirdly, Guido's line was not burdened with rhythmic graphics, as the text of prayers suggested the rhythmic side of the melody. However, with the development of instruments and polyphony in music, the notation lost its simplicity and clarity. For a beginner, the notation became unclear, multi-leveled, and multi-layered. Here is an incomplete list of difficulties and tasks that today face a beginner who comes to a piano class. Remember the rhythm. Duration symbols. Remember the notes. Remember the keys. Develop coordination in working with notes. Higher means right. Lower means left. Develop hand and finger coordination as we play the piano with our hands. Learn to see the uniqueness of each note, even though they are all equally round and differ only in their placement on or between certain lines. The limits of human perception are 6 to 7 homogeneous objects. The multilayered nature of musical language, playing in 2 clefs, orientation on 22 to 23 lines. Proper hand positioning and sound production, touching the instrument, and so forth. For a beginner, to independently solve this list of tasks, it was necessary to return simplicity and visibility to the notes, temporarily transforming and adapting the staff for visual convenience. Helen Heiner untangled this ball of problems step by step, based on the specific difficulties students face when reading music notation. Small text format. It is unclear which notes need to be played. Which should sound together? Helen Heiner enlarged the text format and highlighted the needed vertical line with a yellow focus line, but a student continues to get confused by the black and white lines and spaces, black and white keys, and black and white notes, while also being distracted by the rhythmic graphics, which are also black and white. So, she temporarily removed the rhythmic graphics from the notes to fully focus. First and foremost, on the notes. The next obstacle for the beginner is the discrepancy between the movements to the right, high sounds, to the left, low sounds, while in the notes, high notes are placed higher, eye movement up, and low notes, lower, eye movement down. Notes in the treble clef, upper line of the staff, are played with the right hand, and notes in the bass clef, lower line of 5 lines, must be played with the left hand. And then, for convenience, to avoid confusing the student, Helen Heiner temporarily turned the grand staff sideways, with the clefs pointing up, and achieved complete correspondence of movements right-left. Additionally highlighted in contrasting colors what the right hand should play. Treble clef in green, and what the left hand should play. Bass clef in brown. Having dealt with hand movements, the student has to solve the next task. Notes on the lines and between. Slightly shifting on the staff, they are all identical and black. It seems that they do not differ from each other. To deal with this and show the beginner, to help them fix the visual difference in these notes, Helen Heiner highlighted them in contrasting colors, blue and red. We call them girls, on the lines, like beads on a string, and boys, like balls. Notes between the lines. I tell my students that a ball got stuck between 2 lines. But here's the hitch. Why are some on narrow lines, and others on thick white stripes? What does this mean? Who is in charge here? To avoid suspecting any note of superiority over others, Helen Heiner equalized all the tracks for the notes. She increased the width of the lines, so that all tracks for the notes become equal in width to the keys. As a result, each track of the staff has its specific visible continuation on the piano keys. It turned out that each note corresponds to a specific key, and this fact does not need to be thought out or imagined. It became visible and tangible. Now, when everything seems clear and visible, vision begins to get confused around the third line, in the middle. This is physiologically due to the limits of human perception. The fact is that we can distinguish up to 7 homogeneous objects. So, around ABC, the limits of human visual perception end. And here Helen Heiner also helps, assisting vision with colors. She highlights the small octave C and second octave C in blue. The result is a clear symmetrical division into 4 octaves, in which you will not get confused or lost. Looking at it, the student does not need explanations about which note is on which line. There is no need to memorize or recite poems about a home for each note. To instantly find, not search. Helen Heiner places a picture in the note, suggesting the name of the note, and then the same picture on the key, thus simplifying the task for the beginner to the minimum. See the note with the picture on the staff, find the equivalent on the keyboard. By training the vision in reading note pictures, the student gradually, casually, incidentally, and playfully remembers both the notes and the keys. The picture allows you to name and sing the needed note and key, which day by day develops the student's voice and pitch hearing. Now the staff is understandable even to a 2-year-old child. But how to understand how long to press the key, how long to hold the key with a finger? Here, computer technologies come to the rescue, solving this problem through interactive graphics. Each duration in the program is presented as a blooming flower. From a bud, beginning, blooming, development, duration continuation, to the appearance of a butterfly, which is the end of duration, signal to release the key. Let the butterfly go. So, what bonuses does software use give us when teaching children music? The Soft Mozart program serves as a carrier of musical language for any student. Thanks to digital technologies, it became possible to instantly satisfy the cognitive request of student for new knowledge and skills. And this is done in the program through interactivity, that is, the possibility of interacting with the musical note in real time. For this, the program uses animation hints. For example, the appearance of a spider in gentle piano indicates an incorrect action, a wrong key was pressed. The appearance of Mr. Oops means the key was not held long enough. If a butterfly appears on the note on the screen, it prompts the student to release the key, release the butterfly. And here we come to the third bonus, which software use gives us in teaching. This is the objectivity of results and action assessment. All these hints in gentle piano are soundless, devoid of any emotional coloring or action assessment, thus providing psychological comfort and a sense of security for the student, who quickly corrects the mistake without unnecessary sighs over the errors made in playing. Moreover, objectivity is ensured in the program through numbers. What do the numbers in the bottom left and right corners of the monitor show and tell us? The numbers help assess the student's visual motor delay, VMD, at this stage of learning by 2 parameters. First parameter, The numbers in the bottom left corner of the monitor show how many correct notes were played, green numbers, out of the total in the piece, red numbers.
из имеющихся в данной пьесе, красные цифры.
This parameter reflects the level of the student's visual attention development, that is, the ability to focus and concentrate on notes and keys.
Концентрироваться на нотах и клавишах.
Second parameter, the blue numbers in the bottom right corner of the monitor indicate the time spent seeing the note, shifting focus to the keyboard, finding, and pressing the corresponding key.
На клавиатуру, найти и нажать соответствующую ей клавишу.
How to understand and interpret these numbers. For example, in the first row of the table, you see the piece played without errors, and the time spent finding the keys is half the number of notes. With such results, the students play almost without looking at the keys and can hear themselves from the side. Therefore, you can complicate tasks safely. For example, switch to a more complex presentation of the music text, ask to sing the notes, pay attention to fingering, try to play by memory, etc. If there are less than or equal to 5 errors, and the time is about equal to the number of notes, then you should sit a little more and play this piece to improve your results in errors and time. If the time is significantly greater than the number of notes, then attention should be paid to developing the student's coordination. Play more exercises, and while playing this piece, simplify the visual task. Ask to play with one hand, cut off part of the piece, reduce the number of notes played, switch to an easier level of presenting the music text. For example, move from the third presentation to the first. There may be another option, many errors, but the time is less than the number of notes. This may mean that the child is trying to play by memory, relying on music ear and muscle memory, not looking at the notes, bypassing visual control over the text. In this case, attention should be paid to the notes, engage speech, singing notes, so that hearing skills do not outpace visual motor skills, developing synchronously in balance with each other. And this balance, thanks to numbers, is constantly monitored by the Soft Mozart technology. Working with the program can be compared to a doctor's work, diagnosing and prescribing treatment based on patient test results. Relying on the numbers, we can understand which skills the student is lacking, what needs special attention, and prescribe a recipe, that is, a further action plan for working on a specific piece. And here is an amazing paradox. Together with the Soft Mozart software, the learning process becomes not only more effective, but also more humane and personalized than with the traditional approach to learning to play the piano. The teacher, relying on the computer numbers, begins to treat the development of each student's skills more carefully. Thanks to interactive technologies, there will never be a situation of forcing events and setting high demands on the student in the class. The teacher, in whose class there is such a program, will not demand unfeasible tasks from the student, to which they are not yet ready. The Soft Mozart software completely transforms our understanding of how to build music education, putting the student's personal development at the center of learning. Thank you for your attention.